Hey everyone, if you want to make your own podcast but you don't know where to begin, Spotify for Podcasters makes it super easy. They've got everything in one place, it's totally free, and you can make money while doing it. Here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start doing it today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and pretty much everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also supported, and you can even conduct polls and Q&As. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, the platform is totally free. No catch, totally free. When I wanted to start my own podcast, I did not know where to begin, and I didn't think it was even possible. And Spotify for Podcasters made it happen. They made it easy, they made it quick, and I am doing something that I love. What more can I ask for? So if you're interested in starting your own show, you can do it, and I highly recommend you give this a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Everything Kratom, the podcast about anything and everything Kratom. Great to have you with us on this Tuesday morning. Hope all is going great with you all out there. Today we have a great episode. Yesterday afternoon I had an awesome conversation with our friend Mohammad from Dubai. We've talked with Mohammad once before a couple of weeks ago, and it was really interesting learning about his own discovery of Kratom and how it has helped him with more practical things like, motivation, energy, focus when it comes to his work, and how he works in a fast-paced environment, a demanding environment, and how it's helped him in those sorts of ways. But with this conversation, we wanted to take a more deep dive into how Kratom has helped him in other aspects of life, and that includes ways that it helped him with anxiety, depression, some other things, and then also when it comes to really interesting aspects of his life, which include the fact that it's Ramadan this month. How does Kratom play into the role of fasting for him? I just thought that this was a fascinating topic, and I'm really glad that it came up. And there are a number of other things that we talk about too, including the new types of flavored Kratom that's available nowadays, as well as his experience trying Blue Lotus in tandem with Kratom. So we talked about a whole lot of stuff. It's a really great conversation, and I hope that you enjoy. And as always, thanks for listening. So here we are, back with our friend Mohammad from Dubai, checking in, and it is awesome to talk with you again. So welcome back.
Thank you so much, Jamie. It's really great to be back, and I don't know if everybody listening to this episode has checked out the first episode that we did together a few weeks back. But first of all, I would like to apologize for the sound quality last time. This time, the voice is more audible. And I think it would be good to pick up where we left off last time. I'm already enjoying my second my second dose of Kratom for the day. How have you been, Jamie?
Been doing good, thanks. I've been sorry about the rescheduling issue. I contacted Mohammad yesterday afternoon and was like, all these things came up, and he said, that's fine, I'm flexible. And then I sent him an email 5 minutes later, said, never mind. So the week has been all over the place, but it's been good. I'm feeling good, and I'm glad that we can check in with you again, because like you said, and for those of you who hadn't listened, you should definitely check out the first conversation that we had with Mohammad, which was March 17th, and that's when that one aired, and we got a great overview of just like the background, your context, where are you coming from, how did you first introduce yourself to Kratom, and what has your experience been so far. And as a very brief recap, and you can touch on this further, obviously, but you had talked about how, you know, you found Kratom a while back. And I since learned that you even wrote a book about it. So maybe you can talk about that too. And you really enjoy, you know, like super green in the morning. You like white Bali and white Mangta. You use it for a practical sense. You use it for work, and you use it because your job is so demanding and it's fast paced. You work for this international energy company, if I remember correctly. And so you have a lot of responsibility, and it's been super helpful for you. But then there's another side to how Kratom has helped you, and so we wanted to look at that today too. So would love to hear anything and everything Kratom on your end.
Sure. Well, you've got a great memory, Jamie. It's awesome that you remember all those details. So, there was another side that we wanted to discuss. Last time I talked about how Kratom helps me out at work every day and everything. But there was another side that we wanted to talk about, which is related to the initial reason why I started to take Kratom was for my depression and anxiety. And let me give here a little background about myself, something that I didn't share last time. So I've shared that I live in Dubai, and I've been living in Dubai for 11 years now, but I'm originally from Syria. So I'm of Syrian origin. I'm sure your listeners are and yourself are aware of what happened in Syria years back. So it's my country, but I haven't been able to go there since 2010 when the war broke out.
Wow.
So that probably played a role in me starting to feel a little bit depressed, because I was just, missing my home, my country, even though I love being here in Dubai. But that was a war that really took its toll on me. Years went by until COVID hit. We got to the lockdown stage of things, and I think that was something that impacted everyone. But that was a phase where I started to notice new things started to come up emotionally in my life. Like, I would feel really down in some parts of my day. I would get really anxious at work, but I was also having a lot of anger problems too. I didn't think much of it at first until it started to get worse, and I started to get therapy. And finally, I was put on some medications that were helping. But the thing about medication, Jamie, is that medicine doesn't make you feel happy. It just numbs, the whatever feelings you have. So that wasn't enough for me, and that really isn't what Kratom does for me. So when I discovered Kratom and I started to take Kratom, I was actually feeling like happy again and feelings of joy. And this is by no means any medical advice or anything, but I'm supposed to be on 4 different types of pills according to my doctor. So 4 pills a day. And what I'm actually taking is half a pill plus half a pill. So I've reduced my medication down to half plus half. So by a quarter, down from 4 pills, all after taking Kratom. Again, I'm not advising anybody to do the same, but I've been doing that for a while now, and I have noticed no negative effects whatsoever.
Wow.
And I'm really enjoying my life. I'm still not at the point where I can just stop all medication completely, though I think eventually, and I hope that I will be able to do that. So that is how Kratom helped me. And I was listening to your episode with Joey Talks as well, and he also had his experience with depression. That, you know, shout out to Joey. I love that channel as well. I check out his videos. I checked out your interview with him. It was great too. So that's in short how it helped me, and how my depression and my anxiety started, and where I am right now with that.
Thank you for sharing that background, for being comfortable enough to share it, because it's certainly a tough and sensitive topic for a lot of people. And a shout out to you, because you're the one who introduced me to Joey Talks. So there you go.
Okay.
Mohammad is solely responsible for that episode.
That's great.
Yeah. So let's back up a bit, because I find that fascinating. So you're from Syria. I mean, I always keep this show apolitical, and so this is not a political thing, but it's, you know, that I'll get into here. But I've always followed politics closely. I've always followed, international geopolitical issues closely, and the war in Syria has been one at the forefront. It was happening when I started going to college, and by the time I got out of college, it was, even worse. And so it's just, that's something that I've kind of become an adult with happening, overseas, and I've been following that. So that's really wild. I'm just curious, when was it that you left Syria?
Well, my story is a bit interesting, because for most of my life, I lived in Saudi Arabia, and I was visiting Syria. Syria's my hometown, is where I'm from. I was spending all summer in Syria, and most of my family's there. But I attended school in Saudi Arabia, and I studied in Lebanon. These are all countries that are, within the same region here in the Middle East. So all of those countries are within 2 or 3 hour flight, among each other. So in the US, it's like the equivalent of flying between states. But the last time I ever visited Syria was in August 2010. So wow. It's been a long time. And, I would love to go there again when things get more peaceful and back to normal. Like you said, this show is not a political one, but, this is a human thing.
Right.
And, of course, it's a beautiful country. It's always been a beautiful place. So once it starts to become, peaceful again, and I can take my family there feeling safe, I would love to go there and maybe take some Kratom with me there. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Just out of pure curiosity. So it's a really interesting connection. You kind of brought that up in tandem with this idea that you had already been dealing with a bit of depression, and that kind of helped compound that. And so when you were first starting to realize this, and you mentioned a little bit of this in your book, you had some, time where you talked to a doctor and tried to figure out some of the emotional things happening in your life. And you ended up saying just now that you had 4 medications. You're supposed to be on 4 different medications right now.
Yes.
So how did that work, where Kratom started to help you with those things? Were you already on those 4 different medications while you started taking Kratom and realized you didn't need them, or how did that happen?
Exactly. I was already on the 4, because I started off with 2 and they weren't helping. And I was seeing a doctor every month and the therapist at the same time, because I'm also doing cognitive behavioral therapy at the same time. And I still am doing it. Mm-hmm. Until I've reached the 4 different medications. Then I start to take Kratom. And then I thought, hey, let me just see what happens if I cut down one of the 4 to a half. And I did that, and I waited a few weeks, and I felt no negative effects. So I said, okay, let me see if I can cut down another half. So it wasn't abrupt, where I just suddenly stopped everything. I was just slowly, gradually, cutting down the amount that I was taking until I am where I am now. And that is why I believe that, maybe in a few weeks, I'll see if I can do without one of the halves that I'm taking, and just see what happens. Obviously, if any of the side effects comes back, I'll go back to taking the medication. But so far, man, I'm feeling great. Really, like it's as if there's nothing wrong. And even, I haven't told my therapist about Kratom, but last time she saw me, she's like, "Wow, Mo, you look great. I mean, what's going on?" I'm like, I don't know. Maybe therapy seems to be working or something. I didn't want to talk about Kratom yet, So I kept that, as a secret to myself. Who knows? She might watch this episode. You never know. But yeah, so that's how. So, Jamie, I want to also mention another thing, completely kind of a different topic, is we're now in the month of Ramadan. I don't know if you're aware. Maybe you are, because I know that some people fast in the States. Of course, you have a large Muslim population there.
Yeah.
And I started to fast 2 days ago, and that also changed the timing of my Kratom intake as well. So if it's okay for you, I can talk a little bit about that, because for me, it's something completely new, how to combine fasting with Kratom. And I was a bit worried about that before starting, like how's my schedule gonna be? And it's working as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Is it okay
Please jump in. That sounds like a fascinating topic. Yeah.
All right, cool. So, for those who don't know, Ramadan is a month where people of Muslim faith, we fast all day. So we stop eating and drinking, and that includes water, at sunrise until sunset. So that is the equivalent of, let's say, about 4:40 a.m. until 6:40 p.m. So that's a good 14 hours. And usually during that phase before Ramadan, I would be having at least 3 or 4 doses of Kratom. And I was a bit, worried that how am I going to pull this off? And I've found a schedule that works for me. So now what I do is I wake up at 4:15 a.m. because naturally I always wake up at this time in Ramadan so I can have a little meal, so I can survive the rest of the day and drink a lot of water. So I do that, and I take about 3 grams of Kratom, and it's been green Mengda actually for the past 3 days. I take 3 grams, I feel great, and then I just go back to sleep, and then I wake up for work. And when I wake up for work, a few hours later, the Kratom effect doesn't go away. Like, the calmness is still there. Maybe not the full energy, but the calmness is there. It's definitely there, especially if you take like 3 grams, not half a gram, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to just stay the whole day until, by 6 p.m. Of course, I'm a bit tired, and I may start to get a little bit edgy, but it is already time to break the fast then. So again, once I break my fast, I have my another 2-3 grams. And after, fasting for a long day, your body's, craving nutrients, food, water, everything. And then you take all that in with the Kratom, it's just a blast. You feel great. And, that schedule has been working great for me. I really don't know anyone else who's combining the two. I'm curious to know if there's anyone else who's doing this, but it's it's been pretty interesting, and it's, you know, I feel great at night. I have a lot of energy at night. Right now I'm drinking white Bali, which is one of my favorite strains as well. So probably by midnight I take, you know, another one, and I go to bed, and that's it. But it's been great. I mean, it's been smooth, energy throughout the day, no complaints whatsoever, man.
That's awesome. That's super fascinating. I think that fasting, you know, even separate from the fact that it's Ramadan, like for a lot of people, fasting is becoming, you know, something that they do each month for one day, or, you know, every few months. You know, you have all these different health reasons that people do it. It's kind of become more of a mainstream idea, I think, recently in the West, at least. So I think it's really fascinating to hear about it from your perspective, and I mean specifically through the actual religious reasoning. And you know, I've had a very small but similar experience when it comes to Yom Kippur, being Jewish and having the day of fasting, and how Kratom might affect that day. So I can relate to it. But that's really interesting. Do you so for Ramadan, I'm not super familiar with it. I know the general premise behind it, but for fasting, do you fast from sunrise to sunset, and then you can eat after sunset, or what's the rule?
Yeah, exactly. After sunset, you can eat, drink whatever you want, minus alcohol. But you know, otherwise you can. I wouldn't recommend alcohol anyway after such a long day without being hydrated. It's not a good idea.
Sure.
But yeah, and obviously the point isn't really to stuff yourself, even though the cravings are there. But if it's done the right way, and you eat healthy sized portions, you can you'll be feeling good, without going through a food coma, like after having a crazy dinner. But yeah, you can. If from sunset to sunrise, you can eat, as much as you want, drink all the water that you need, get yourself hydrated. And during the day, you don't. And it seems like it's a lot harder than it sounds. A lot of people ask me, like, how do you do that? How do you stay without water all day, especially in Dubai where it's hot? It's fine, man. Like it's really, the body can adapt to things. I can even walk outside. I take walks even though it's it's sunny. It's all good. So that's how it works. But what's your experience? I'm not familiar with your fasting, and how did that work with Kratom?
Yeah, I mean, it's so you do it for each year you do it for Yom Kippur, and it's I'm terrible at being Jewish, but that kind of makes me good at it. That's my joke. But but from my understanding of what I'm supposed to be doing, every year, you're supposed to kind of think about, how can I be better this upcoming year? How wasn't I as well, good as I should have been this past year? And the fasting is kind of a reminder of that. And it's, kicking the can to get you to think about that, which I think is valuable, and it's a good lesson. And so I've done it a few times now. And I've taken Kratom only a couple of maybe once or twice of those few times I've really participated in it. And I've found that I've had good experiences with it. I don't think I took greens or reds. I think at that time I only really had white varieties of Kratom. And I don't know what type specifically, but I think it was white Thai. And I took it in the morning, similar to you, but not that early in the morning. And then I would go for the day, and I had a good experience with it, but I have trouble taking Kratom and having nothing in my stomach. And it usually results in me feeling a bit sick. I remember that I got a bit of nausea, but it wasn't too bad. And overall, the day went well. But I kind of feel like for me, Kratom works better when I have like just a little bit in my belly. I don't need much. The episode this morning that I actually put out, this episode that we're recording now is going out tomorrow morning. But this morning I did one on how taking like just eating a banana and nothing else and then taking Kratom works so well for me. And I just discovered that this weekend. But having nothing in my belly, I can get a bit queasy, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it works better for me when I don't have as much in my stomach. And
I agree with you. And actually, in last episode, I said that I prefer to take it on an empty stomach, but I did start to feel nauseous as well if I take too much on an empty stomach. And like you said, if you have a small meal like a banana, that is perfect. That is perfect. By the way, since we're on like a kind of a spiritual topic here, one thing that I noticed the Reds help with, in particular, is meditation. So meditation is something that I don't do for any religious reasons. It's just that it's something that I've been doing on and off for many years, just to feel more at peace and more calm. And red strains aren't particularly my favorite, but they are super helpful for reaching a meditative state more than anything else. And that is something I've noticed. I don't know, Jamie, if you've ever tried to meditate, but it's all about just calming your inner thoughts and inner dialogue and that chattering that goes on. And when you're on the Reds, it's just so relaxing and euphoric, right? So naturally it just complements the breathing exercises you do when meditating. So for anyone that does meditate, meditation as a frequent practice, combining it with Reds is perfect.
That's a great idea. I haven't personally, I've tried meditation in the past. Kind of works for me, kind of doesn't, depending on what I mean by work. But I do get something out of it. But I don't do it often. What I do find familiar with what you're saying is that I take Reds before bed sometimes, not just it's going to help me sleep, but more winding down the day, laying down in bed, not trying to go to sleep right away, but just kind of laying there and not doing anything. I think it's helpful. It's important. It's beneficial to have those moments, and Reds really help me with that. So I think that's kind of is more of a similar experience than other things that I use Reds with. Yeah.
Did you ever have insomnia in your life before starting to take Kratom? Was insomnia ever a thing that you had to deal with?
I'd never had insomnia, but I couldn't get to sleep right away. I'm one of those people that when I lay down, it's like, this is going to be a challenge. Like I'm going to get to sleep, but it's not like I'm going to fall asleep in 2 minutes like my wife falls asleep. Like I'm going to be up for a half an hour, 40 minutes trying to fall asleep. Right. So that's kind of my experience with it.
Okay. No, I've never had that problem. Sleeping for me was, I'm the type that I can be anywhere at any time, and if I want to fall asleep, I will. And maybe that's why I didn't need the Reds, but I'm sure that if I had this trouble sleeping, the Reds would have been really helpful for me too. One thing I've tried since we last spoke is the Blue Lotus, actually, that we talked about last time.
I really want to hear about that.
So I got Blue Lotus powder from the same website that you do. I think it's Mood and Mind. And I tried it in two different ways. I either mix it with the Kratom in the same drink, whether it's a tea or juice or whatever, or water. And I've tried it like 2 hours after taking Kratom, and I would then have the Blue Lotus. And my thoughts basically are, it does something, but I can't isolate its effect on its own, because I would need to take it like first thing in the morning before taking kratom for me to know exactly what it does. My feeling about it now is like it's kind of like a strong potentiator. That's what it feels like to me. Like it makes the effects of kratom more powerful. And if I take it a couple hours later, if the kratom effect is like dropping and I take Blue Lotus, it kind of pushes it up again for like a few more hours. Oh. That's what I felt it did for me. I would like to try it alone on its own to see, just to notice exactly what it does. But for now, it's like a super cool potentiator. That's how I feel about it.
That's really neat. That's cool. What was that?
What about you? I know you like it, so.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Blue Lotus. I've brought it up for everybody listening. I've brought this up a number of times. I know you know that. It's something that is near and dear to my heart because I discovered it on the same night I discovered kratom. Like the two are interlocked in my memory as the same thing. Not the same thing, but the night that I first tried kratom, my friend had also given me a lemon Blue Lotus shot. And wow. So that kind of like, I took kratom and Blue Lotus at the same time, my first experience with kratom. And so that was the night that, my Tourette's officially ended, basically. I mean, it was a memorable experience. Okay. And it still hovers around in the back of my head, but I'm able to control it now, even when I'm not taking kratom or Blue Lotus. But the two are so helpful. I've ever since then, kratom on its own works really well for me. Blue Lotus on its own, it works well for me, not as well as kratom in the ways that I'd like it to. And it's not really something that is, energizing. I liken it to, like chamomile tea in a way, if I drink it as a tea. It's very relaxing. But taking it together with kratom, whatever my desired effects are, it helps it happen. And it's the type of kratom that I enjoy most is a blend of white Thai, green Thai, and Blue Lotus extract. And it's just, it's a killer combination. And it's the one type of kratom I can take in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, or before I go to bed. And whatever I want it to do, it does it. It's just kind of like that magic bullet for my body. So that's kind of my relationship to it and why I enjoy it so much. Yeah. Okay.
And do you stick to the recommended amount on the bag? Because it says something like a quarter of a teaspoon. And I put more. I mean, I put more than half a teaspoon because I'm like, okay, quarter of a teaspoon, what's that gonna do? So I put a little bit more, and I feel it, and I don't feel anything bad because I'm going above the recommended amount. Do you stick to the quarter?
With the extract, it's 50-1 extract, I think, and it's I usually stick to the quarter. I've had a bit more before. My body's very sensitive to it. If I mix that in some tea or if I take it with kratom, it really does the job. I don't really need that much more. And then with the actual flowers, the Blue Lotus flowers, you can also buy the dried leaves, petals. I love making tea out of that. And sometimes I'll make a lot stronger tea than they recommend, but after a certain point, it can make me feel a bit sick to my stomach again. But that's just kind of like, if I drink too strong a tea of any type of tea, my stomach gets a little queasy. Right. So I don't think it's Blue Lotus specific. Yeah,
it's a little bit bitter too, right? I've tried the tea. If you put a bit too much, it has this bitter taste. But yeah, I like it, man. I like the Blue Lotus.
Great, that's interesting.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm right after this podcast, I'm gonna have some because I kind of forgot that I have Blue Lotus in my kitchen, so I'm gonna go for it. And by the way, speaking of our friend Joey Talks, another thing that he recommended that I tried was the flavored kratom,
right?
From the company that he buys from. A Krabot or whatever, or however it's pronounced, and the flavored stuff tastes pretty good, man. Like, first of all, it doesn't taste like kratom at all. So it's not like bitter with some sweetness. No, like I don't know what they did, but they took away that bitter taste completely. And it's kind of dangerous because it makes you want to drink more because it tastes so good. And it also, I mean, I'm guessing if you get used to it, it's going to be difficult returning to a non-flavored Kratom as well. So I'm trying not to limit my intake only to the flavored stuff. I try to take, one dose of flavored just to enjoy the taste, but everything else I stick to the natural stuff. But it is an interesting experience, and there's a lot of flavors. It seems there's this watermelon one that I haven't tried yet. I just got curious. I ordered it. I'm waiting for it to arrive. Like, watermelon flavored Kratom. Interesting,
Yeah. The flavors are like, see what that's like. Flavors are where it's kind of headed. It's fascinating. I feel like it's popping up at a lot of different vendors on their websites, and coming soon to a theater near you. This flavor Kratom, no Kratom taste. Mm-hmm. So that's really interesting. Yeah, that's exciting to hear about.
I think as it gets more mainstream, you're going to see more of these things, because I'm seeing gummy bears and I'm seeing all these things that I've never tried, but eventually I'm gonna give everything a shot.
Well, that's great. It's so interesting, and we're living in an exciting time for Kratom with all these new products and different ways of taking it, and all the thought going into it. Like now you can get Kratom and it says triple lab tested. This is the batch number. Everything. It's very it inspires confidence in it. So it's good to see.
True. Yeah. And so I did have a little bit of a scare a couple of weeks ago, because one of my shipments took a long time to arrive. And I mentioned on the last podcast how Kratom is neither legal nor illegal here, because they don't even know what it is.
Right.
And when it took longer than usual to arrive, I was like, man, I think they're onto us now. They found out what it was, and I'm never gonna get my Kratom again. And I was worried. I was calling the delivery company, and they're like, no, don't worry, it's on its way. I'm like, okay, good. And then just a few days later, I had it in my office. Okay, thank God. Nothing to worry about. So it was a little bit of a scare a couple of weeks ago.
Well, it's good. I'm glad that it came. I think the mail system's been pretty wacky this past year or two, so that's good to hear that it got through.
Yeah.
So something else that I wanted to ask you about, it's kind of going back to where we started in a way, but so I just think that it's really fascinating to me whenever someone talks about how Kratom has helped them with any sort of, like, aside from the practical uses, but more emotional and anxiety and depression and things like that. If you're comfortable with it, do you mind kind of talking a little bit about the sorts of diagnoses that you've had around that area, and then, exactly how Kratom has helped you there? Because something that I talked with Joey about towards the end, I think, of our podcast with him, and something he's talked about a lot, is there's, things can help with your mental health, but I think he framed it as, and I thought rightly so, it's a tool, like Kratom can be a tool to help you get to the place where you can work on yourself, but it's not necessarily the thing that cures you, that makes you happy, but it allows you to figure things out. And at the same time, I find personally that Kratom really, can be a mood booster on its own. So I'd just be interested to hear your whole experience with that.
Right. I totally agree with what Joey said. I don't think Kratom is a cure, and I also mentioned that in my book as well, that it puts me in a state of mind where I can work on myself. But it's not meant to be a cure. So in terms of my diagnoses, thankfully it wasn't severe. What I was diagnosed with was moderate depression, moderate anxiety, and rage. Okay. And I know I don't come off as a rageful person probably, and people get surprised when I tell them that, but there were just phases where I would just go from 0 to 100 from some triggers in my life. And so the emotions that come with these things are at its worst, I would say on some days, like I would wake up in the morning and just not want to get out of bed, or not want to go to work. And when it reached that level of not wanting to go to work, and I have to go to work, I have a family, I can't just not go to work. And I had to talk to my managers and say, look, I'm having some mental health issues because of workload. I'm unable to cope with the stress. I need a break. And, thankfully they were really understanding. And that was exactly around the time when I discovered Kratom. So it was I took a break from work. It was just for a couple of weeks. And at the same time, I started to take Kratom. So I went back to work with a completely different attitude because, like you said, it's a mood booster. I was feeling much better. I wasn't very stressed about work anymore. I was happy at home, at work. But I also know deep down that if I stop taking Kratom, there's a chance that all these old things might come up again. So I still, need to work on, deeper issues, continue therapy, of course, try to understand, the core reason why these things happened. And I'm working on it. Almost every day I try different things. I try to journal, I meditate, I fix my diet, I talk to people. So let's see how it goes. I like to experiment, so maybe one day I'll say, hey, let me try to taper down Kratom to just like 1 gram a day and see if I can still feel good. And I'm very self-aware. Thankfully, I'm very sensitive about how I'm feeling, so I'm able to gauge if I'm getting better or not getting better. But yeah, to sum it up, Kratom is a helpful and excellent tool to put you in a state where you can work on yourself.
Thanks for going through that. It's great to hear that it can do that for you, and just makes me more optimistic about it than ever before. Honestly, I think that's amazing. Do you find that this is something that you want to continue using for the long term, in those sorts of ways that you're finding it helpful in your life?
Absolutely. I don't have any intentions on stopping Kratom right now, because I don't feel like I don't have any reason to not take it. I've never experienced anything negative because of it. I'm managing to fast all day, and still I can still do it. So I just proved to myself that I can go a full day without taking it. So again, even though I may be dependent on it to some level, but I don't think that it's to an extreme level, because again, I could go all day without it. I still feel fine. I just need a little bit at night, a little bit in the morning, and I'm good. And if I ever need to stop, I know how to stop. But for the current moment, I don't feel like I want to stop. I'm enjoying it. I see more pros than cons. Barely any downsides so far. Yeah, okay, you pay a little bit more every month. There's a new budget on the side for Kratom, but okay, less spending on alcohol and other things that are, could be more expensive than Kratom. So, I used to drink a lot more, and sometimes you spend one night of drinking at a bar, you can spend as much as you'd spend a month in 1 month on Kratom. It's, you know, at least here in Dubai, because alcohol is expensive here. So yeah, I don't see any downsides for it yet. So yeah, to answer your question, I do plan on taking it in the long term, and the more I notice more good things about it, I like to share it with my friends, share it on platforms like your podcast, and yeah, I'm a big fan.
Well, it's awesome, and I'm glad it's working so well for you. And it seems like, to me, you have a very reasonable, grounded view of Kratom and how it works with your body, which is great. And, you know, I think it's so important that people have a good read on themselves when they're taking anything, let alone Kratom. And along those lines, what you mentioned that the prescriptions that you have, they kind of numbed things instead of helped you figure out things. Do you find that the difference was immediate when you switched over more to Kratom and you lessened the prescription dosage? That, like, is it your emotions like that come back to you? Is it that you just weren't laughing at things that were funny? Like, how do you mean numbed?
That's a good question. Numbed, basically, I wasn't feeling sad, I wasn't feeling down, I wasn't feeling angry, but I wasn't feeling motivated either. So it's just like, okay, you know, life is just happening and whatever. It's like a sense of just, you know, not looking forward to anything, but also not being bothered by anything. It's okay. It's better than being depressed, but it's not the way we're meant to function as human beings on Earth. I think you know, the purpose of being here is to enjoy life. So, and Kratom from day one, and that is why I haven't stopped taking it from the first day that I took it. From the very first time I tried it, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I can feel like this. I have a tool that can make me enjoy life again, and you know, play with my kids, laugh with my daughters, be funny around them, enjoy life, enjoy hanging out with friends, instead of, I mean, as opposed to just being alone, or you know, like, because I like to spend time alone, but when you're depressed and when you're on medication, it can be a bit too much. You start to spend more and more time alone, and you're not bothered by it, but then you realize that you're distancing yourself from people that matter to you, and it shouldn't be that way. So from day one, Kratom just made everything better, and it really it seems like I'm overselling it, but I'm really not. I'm sure you understand, Jamie, what I'm talking about, right? It's not for those that haven't tried Kratom, it probably sounds like such a magical and, you know, such a great thing. It really is. I mean, it truly is something amazing. Now, whoever is listening to your podcasts, season 4, episode 3, I'm sure they've already done Kratom before, so I doubt that they haven't. But I mean, it is just really amazing, and I'm always grateful that I found Kratom.
That's wonderful. You know, as a final question to kind of wrap things up, this is a sneak peek of the episode for tomorrow, which is going to be about stigma. I got an email from someone, and they were really wonderful. They laid out kind of like some context for the background of their lives and what they've been going through for a number of years now, and how Kratom has helped. And they asked a couple questions around stigma, which I thought were really good questions, and I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. You mentioned stigma today. You mentioned that that you haven't talked to your doctor about how Kratom has helped you so much, and they've noticed that you're doing really well, and you just don't want to talk to them about it. I'd love to hear just, is it just you haven't thought about it other than just like, well, I just don't want to bring it up? Or is it something that you've gone back and forth about bringing up with them and decided not to?
The reason I haven't brought it up to them is because if they haven't tried it, they're going to Google it. And once they Google it, they're going to see all types of terrible results pop up on the first pages, right? That's what happens when you Google Kratom. And I know you've done some episodes about that too. If you haven't tried Kratom, the internet could really scare you. I don't know why is it on purpose or not? Is it some kind of propaganda or campaign from the pharmaceutical industry? I have no idea. But if somebody has never heard of Kratom and they Google it or even YouTube it, you're gonna see insane side effects, really scary stories, stories about people that overdosed and died. And they could be true stories, but I don't know what they were taking. I don't know if the Kratom they were taking was pure or not. I don't know how much they did. I have no idea. So that is why I didn't want to be lectured by somebody that's never tried it and is only getting their information off Google. And I know if somebody does their homework in a very non-biased way and goes to, real resources and speak with real experts on Kratom, people that do non-biased research on, the real positives and negatives, you'll understand that this is something that, if done in a proper way and in a balanced and grounded way, is something that is good for you. But until this becomes how people generally feel about Kratom, I'm just going to keep it to myself, unless I'm speaking to somebody that is very open-minded. So that's basically how I prefer it to be right now.
Well, that's really super interesting, well thought out, and I think touches on a number of things I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. And this email, which I'm not going to read the email verbatim in the next episode, but I'm going to touch on a few points that this person made. And one of the questions is, there's a subreddit page that's devoted to quitting Kratom, and there's all these YouTube videos of people having horrific stories with Kratom, and I like how you just phrased that they might be true, but some of these things might be true, but how much were they taking? Was the product adulterated or not? Were they taking other things? And it's just, there's so many different factors going into this, and I've been doing some research on it, so I hope people are interested to hear that episode tomorrow. And I really appreciate your analysis of how you think about it in your own life and how that comes out, with how you're willing to talk about it. So as always, super interesting. Love talking to you, Mohammad. Please come back again. And, this is great. I'd like to have you as a regular if you're willing.
Of course. Whenever I have some updates, I'll hit you up immediately. It's always a pleasure. I really enjoyed the talk, and surely we'll do it again. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have is your book still available on Kindle? I think you said it was, or it used to be.
It is on Kindle. It is on any website that sells ebooks. But here's the thing: I don't even remember the title of my book, and I'm really sorry for this. But I don't, because I had the feeling you were gonna ask me, and I was like, what was the name of my book? I don't even remember the name. I'm gonna have to look it up and email you, and maybe mention it next time, because I just wrote that book and I wasn't planning on selling it. I was like, you know what? I'm so excited about Kratom. I'm gonna write a book about it and just throw it online, and whoever finds it, great. And it's more of a booklet, right? Because it's like 15, 16 pages. it's got the word Kratom in the title. That's all I know. But I don't remember the title right now, which is crazy. But.
Well, if you can figure it out, let me know. Send me an email, and I'll share it so that people can look it up. Because you shared it with me, and I really enjoyed reading through it. It's a really neat book, little booklet, and it's not just about your experience, but it's like how you discovered it, and it's also you throw some real information in there and some history around it, some of the negative potential effects of it. I mean, it's a very well-rounded little booklet that's helpful to have on hand. So I really enjoyed it. So if you find it, let me know.
I will. I'll email you soon with the title.
Good.
Will do.
Right. Well, thanks so much for joining us again, and we'll have you on sometime soon.
Thank you, Jamie. It's a pleasure.